On the line with us, James Suzman PhD, anthropologist and author of Affluence Without Abundance. He heads the Cambridge-based research and support organization Anthropos, and he's been working with the Bushmen of Botswana's Eastern Kalahari for more than 25 years. Wrote a brilliant piece for Evonomics that got me on his, got him on my radar screen. The Evonomics piece is called How Hunter-Gatherers May Hold the Key to Our Economic Future. Professor Suzman, welcome to the program, or Dr. Suzman.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sadly, I'm not a professor yet.
Am I pronouncing names correctly? Your name, Anthropos, stuff like that?
Yeah, you're doing a good enough job.
Okay, thank you. So tell us what, we as human beings, our forebears, our ancestors, regardless of our race or region that we're from or whatever, all of our ancestors, for the majority of the 260,000 to 400,000 years that the human race has been around, lived as hunter-gatherers. The agricultural revolution was just 10, 11,000 years ago, and it didn't include all humans, just, what it led to what we call Western civilization, I guess. What does that mean, that our evolutionary background was a very different kind of society and culture and frankly, work organization than what we have now?
Yeah, well, it means...
And is my characterization accurate?
Your characterization is accurate. I mean, I could wax lyrical about the impacts of the Neolithic revolution in terms of how we think now and all the different kind of things that we take as absolutely normal, how that shaped us. But actually the truth is, as you say, we evolved as a species probably around 250,000 years ago. The picture keeps getting clearer. We get new sciences like genomics, which kind of unpeels the human genome historically, which gives us much better insights into human history. But what we do know now is that for really 200,000 years plus of that history, we lived as hunter-gatherers with something called an immediate return economy. And an immediate return economy is one where you work to meet your immediate needs. You don't worry about the future, and hunter-gatherers could do that. So hunter-gatherer societies didn't have this kind of obsession with work that we do, this idea of having to work 60 hours, this obsession with productivity, growth, with solving the economic problem. Instead, they led lives which were dominated primarily by what we might call leisure time. I mean, some of it may have been spent rearing children and so on and so forth. But they only worked, on average, around 15 to 17 hours a week. And this is even in the toughest environments, like the Kalahari Desert. And what this says to me, and what I suppose was one of the main points of the book, and is actually now I'm trying to be even more explicit about it in my next book, is that we as a species, we have this sense that we're somehow hardwired to work, that our lives are bereft of purpose and meaning if we don't work, if we don't prove ourselves socially in the workspace.
And work a 40 to 60-hour week at that.
Exactly, and it's kind of understandable, because at the moment, we work to live and we live to work. We define our social status by means of work. We spend most of our time at work. It's what we do, it's what we are. But the evidence of hunter-gatherer societies suggests to us that we're not hardwired to work. Somehow we have the sense that, if we don't have work, we're nothing. But hunter-gatherer societies suggest that actually we're a different kind of creature altogether, something far more versatile, that we may be purposive. We may do a radio show like yours or write a book like mine. But in doing that, it doesn't necessarily need to be subsumed within this extraordinary culture of sort of production, consumption, and risk management that we have now. It suggests that actually our options for the future, in particular, now that there's all this panic about automation, are actually, far more interesting than they appear to be at the moment. There's been a Davos in the, World Economic Forum with all the sort of grand industrial bigwigs and sort of kings of industry and government sort of all loitering together and worrying about what the implications of what the so-called fourth industrial revolution, this process of automation, will do to us. It's going to rob us of our jobs, they're panicking. Bill Gates is saying we must tax automata as if they're humans and retrain people to do more work. For me, the question is when you take the long view of human history, actually it suggests, shouldn't we be looking at this as an opportunity to entirely reimagine our relationship with work and the workplace? And in doing so, ultimately try and reimagine our relationship more broadly with our planet and one another.
So you're suggesting we go back to a 15 to 17-hour work week, essentially? And apropos of that, I mean, you know, we have heard these stories from other places. I mean, for example, in the Sermon on the Mount from Matthew, and I'm not a big fan of quoting religion, but I think that this is like one of those anomalies in Christianity that very few people understand. Therefore, I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you'll eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds you. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to his lifespan? I mean, that's essentially the ethos that you're talking about, the hunter-gatherer worldview.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I approach it from the point of view of a, anthropologist, and I tend to think of us as cultural beings. We're kind of made by the experiences that shape us and the things that we learn from others. And somehow, bizarrely, since the Neolithic Revolution, there's been this absolute reification of work. You know, work becomes everything that we define ourselves, and it's understandable. You know, the agricultural revolution, in terms of the early guys who adopted it, at least, was a terrible mistake. It brought them untold trouble and problems. I mean, hunter-gatherers had a good life. They were pretty well off nutritionally. And then somehow they got this idea, probably as a result of climate change, that, you know, they needed to store food for tomorrow. Right. And by storing food for tomorrow and working out how to domesticate some species, and again, there's a sort of important climate link there. It was sort of this in many ways is sort of, you know, if we use a biblical analogy, this was the apple in the garden.
Well, it was certainly the story of Cain and Abel. I mean, you know, Abel was, you know, one was the pastoralist and the other was the agriculturalist, and the agriculturalist was the killer, was Cain.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, pastoralists are killers as well. I mean, if you think again, one of the sort of big mistakes that nobody really imagined would come with domesticating cattle or goats or pigs or chickens is actually most of the diseases that ravage us now and certainly wiped out huge early agricultural populations almost to a man and a woman came from the livestock that we
TB, syphilis, flu, all these things.
Exactly. I mean, the list is on.
So,
and of course,
Dr.
flu.
Dr. Suzman, forgive my interrupting. We just have a minute left, and we're going to hit a hard break here. Are you suggesting that you know, I remember the old Jetson cartoons when I was a kid, where George goes to the factory and for 3 hours a day he pushes a button every 15 minutes and gets a good paycheck and can raise a family with that? Is that what we should be looking at in this age of automation?
Well, in a sense, I think it's obviously more complicated than a Jetson cartoon, but in a bizarre way, yes. You know, we are purposive creatures, and I think that, you know, frankly, I would be much happier spending 15 hours a week worrying about what I'm going to eat and how I'm going to pay for things and do all the basics of life, and the rest, maybe writing books, doing art, or, you know, even playing PlayStation if that's how I'm so inclined. I think we're purposive species, but I think ultimately there's a huge danger. Our obsession with work creates this culture of obsession about economic growth that we have now, and that economic growth culture has very obvious and severe environmental and indeed social consequences. Yeah, and we have to address that.
It's remarkable, and it's a great piece for Economics magazine or website economics.com. It's how hunter-gatherers may hold the key to our economic future. You can also check out fromthebush.com and Dr. James Suzman's book Affluence Without Abundance. Thank you so much for being with us.